Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of On The Sidelines. My name is Matthew Lean Bruni,
And I'm Benedict Rhodes.
and today we're going to be doing our NHL playoff prediction video for the upcoming 2020 playoffs.
Before we get into Matthew, you want to just quickly run us through the format for this playoffs and maybe how the two hub cities are going to work?
Yep, so the NHL is having 12 teams play from the East and 12 teams from the West. Or both teams are or both conferences are going to have hub cities in one city each. So Toronto will host the Eastern Conference, and Edmonton will host the Western. And instead of starting with the regular 16-team format for the NHL playoffs, um, the top four seeds are going to be playing in a round robin competition to determine who's going to make to determine the seeding for the uh, the playoffs. While the 5 to 12 seeds will play each other in a qualifying round, which is a best of five series, and then that will determine if they move on. And then after the qualifying round and round robin series, it will be just a formal Stanley Cup, like a regular Stanley Cup playoffs, and yeah, and Edmonton will be hosting the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final.
And because as you've seen in the previous videos in this sort of mini series, I guess we've done NBA and MLB already. We'll each pick two teams from each conference who we want to look for in the playoffs. And who's your first team?
So in the Eastern Conference, my first team to look out for is the Washington Capitals. They had another successful year. Of course, they won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. So I think that with this new format, they have a chance to make some noise in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, they have one of the greats, Alex Ovechkin, who's still on the team. And they have a couple of other great players like Nicholas Backstrom. They actually added Kovalchuk recently, too. So they have a pretty good roster at hand too, and especially with Braden Holtby at goal. Braden Holtby, sorry, at goalie. So I think they have a great chance to make the Stanley Cup final again, like they did in 2018.
Yeah, for my first team, I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins. I think they're probably favorites to win this whole thing, as I'll get to. But I think they had the best points percentage when the season was cut short. They have some of the top scorers in the NHL. They have David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand among their roster. As long as Marchand doesn't lick anyone again and gets himself suspended, they'll score a lot of points. They're one of the best goalies in the league in Tuukka Rask, who's had an incredible season. So as I'll continue to say throughout this episode, I think the Boston Bruins are going to be one of the favorites to win the whole thing.
All right. So my second Eastern Conference team to look out for is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Um, coming off of they're coming up of off of last year's pretty disappointing first round series against Columbus, which they got swept. I think everyone had high expectations for them. I think they won the President's Trophy last year too, if I'm not wrong. So everyone had definitely had high expectations for them. But um, coming to coming into this playoffs, I think they have a chance to prove some people wrong and maybe make a run to the Stanley Cup final. Of course, they still have they have great players still on their team like Braden Point, Steven Stamkos, Anthony Cirelli, and of course they have their goalie Andrei Vasilevsky. I mean, if they don't have a horrible first round series like last year, maybe they can have some success in this new format.
Yeah, my second team is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Maybe a bit of a dark horse to win the whole thing. Like they'll have to go through one of the qualifying series. They're playing against Montreal. If they get through that, I think they're on paper still a very good team, even if maybe their best years may be behind them. But only a few years removed from winning a couple of Stanley Cups. When any team that has Sidney Crosby on it and all the other incredible players they have, I think they're going to be one of the favorites for sure. If they can get on form and win a few games in a row, I think they could be a very dangerous team.
All right. Well, that was the Eastern Conference. So now we're gonna mention our two Western Conference teams to look out for. So Ben, who's your first team?
I'm going to go with the Colorado Avalanche. They were very, very good before the season was paused, but also had a lot of injuries when the season was paused. Like Nathan McKinnon, Nazem Kadri, Mikko Rantanen, Philip Grubauer, Andrei Burakovsky. All these guys were injured before the season was stopped. They're all expected to be healthy and ready to go when the season does resume in a couple of days. So I think if they're all firing on top form, I think they're going to be. They're already one of the best teams. I think adding all these stars back, especially someone like Nathan McKinnon, for example, I think they're going to be very dangerous and are definitely up there with some of the best Western Conference teams.
Right. Well, my first West team is the defending Stanley Cup champion. Sorry, the St. Louis Blues. I know we talk about championship hangover, but St. Louis Blues so far, well, at least in the regular season, have been successful. I mean, they still have that championship pedigree from last year. That's why I think they're definitely a team to look out for, as they're one of the top four in the West. Um, and all their players have, like I said, like have had success in the Stanley Cup final and have had that experience. So maybe that can carry on into this playoff format. And of course, they still have some great players like Vladimir Tarasenko, Jacob Bouwmeester, who I think just was coming off an injury, if I'm not wrong, and Alex Pietrangelo, etc. So I think that, and also I should mention in goalie, they still have Jordan Binnington too, who was pretty great in last year's playoffs. So I think that they can bring themselves back to possibly another cup.
And my second team for the Western Conference is going to be the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know if they're quite there yet in terms of being ready to challenge for a Stanley Cup, but they have this year's Art Ross winner, Leon Draisaitl, who I believe scored 110 points in 71 games, as well as, of course, I think the best player in the world, and I think most people would agree, Connor McDavid. If those two are firing, they're always going to score goals. I think maybe defensively they're not maybe as good as a couple other teams, or maybe not good enough to keep out teams like the Colorado Avalanche. But I think offensively they're up there with any team in the league, and I think could definitely get far in the Western Conference and maybe maybe challenge for the Stanley Cup. But first they have to play against the 12 seed Chicago Blackhawks in the qualifying series matchup.
All right. Well, my second team is the inter-province rival, the Calgary Flames. Last year, of course, they really didn't seem like they had a great playoffs. Like, of course, they were eliminated in 5 in the first round, which everyone didn't think would happen. I mean, like with the crazy playoffs we had last year. But I mean, coming into this playoffs, I think they have a great chance to be one of those teams that can make a great playoff run. I mean, they can be a sneaky team, I should say. Of course, they have left wingers Johnny Gaudreau, Milan Lucic, who was from Edmonton, and Matthew Tkachuk. So I think that if they get past Winnipeg, and if they get a reasonable team in the if they get past them and they get a reasonable team to face in the first round, in the official first round, then maybe they might have a playoff run. I don't think they're going to come out of the West, but I think that they can make some kind of run if they're healthy and if they come up to their game.
And starting with the Western Conference, I guess we'll stay on that page. Who do you think is going to be the team to come out of the conference and make the Stanley Cup final in the Western Conference?
So for the Western Conference, I'm gonna go with the St. Louis Blues to come out of it again for a second straight year. As I mentioned before, they still have that experience in playing the playoffs, and they do have one of the best offenses in the league. And of course, they still have most of their roster from last year's Stanley Cup playoff run. So if they aren't if they're successful as they were last year, and then especially in the regular season, and if they get like a reasonable matchup against a reasonable team like that they can actually win against, then I think that they can come out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, for Western Conference team, I'm going to go with the Colorado Avalanche. I think they're just probably all around one of the best teams in the NHL, let alone the Western Conference. I didn't even mention rookie Cale Makar in the first little segment there. who had 50 points as a defender as a rookie, 12 goals and 38 assists. So I think if he can play at his level as well, I think this Avalanche team is just going to be a dangerous team throughout the playoffs.
All right. And now to the Eastern Conference. Who do you think is gonna come out of the East?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I think the Boston Bruins are, on paper anyway, the best team in the NHL. So I think I'll go with them. Is it like all around, offensively, defensively, in goal? Like they're overall, I think, the best team in the NHL.
All right. Well, my team that I'm going to go with is the Washington Capitals. Of course, as I mentioned before, the great Alex Ovechkin is still on their team, and they have Braden Holtby at goalie. So I think that they'll have a great playoff run, and that's why I'm picking them to win the East. If they, like the St. Louis Blues, if they don't get the Hurricanes again and lose in seven, I think that would be suck for them again. But I think. I think that they can make it out of the East again for for the second out of third year out of 3 years, I should say.
And overall, in the sort of grand scheme of things, who do you think is going to be the Stanley Cup champion in a couple months' time?
I'm gonna go with Washington again. Like I said, they have a lot of experienced players. Looking back at the playoffs 2 years ago when they made that Stanley Cup playoff run, um, beating the Vegas Golden Knights in that dominant fashion that they did in 5 games. I think that it proved that they can still have that sort of mentality of like, we can win a lot of Stanley Cups in the future, or a good amount of Stanley Cups in the future. So I think that they learned from last year's the unsuccessful playoff run last year, and I think that coming to this year they're more hungry, and that's why I'm picking them to win the cup.
I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins. As I said throughout this video, I think, just like I said, overall best team on paper in the NHL. I think they're due for one. I think they've been very, very good over the last few years, and it's been a few years since they won a cup. So I think they might just go all the way this year, and so if they get hot, well, it's the same for any team, and it's such a sort of, I keep saying sprint to the finish. I guess kind of a cliche, I guess, but I think if they get hot, they're going to be unbeatable.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, just to mention, like talking about the qualifying round, there's some great matchups in the qualifying round. There's 8 great matchups, I would say. Which one are you most forward to watching?
Yeah, there's a few good ones in each conference, and all these teams are there for a reason, of course. But um, Toronto versus Columbus, I think, is a good one. We haven't talked about either of those teams yet. Again, I think Toronto is one of those teams where they're either going to be really, really good if they get going, or really, really bad if they don't. So as the Leafs have always been, usually the second one. But yeah, I think that'll be a good series. See what the Leafs are made of. Playing in, well, there's not really home ice advantage with no fans, but at least a bit of familiarity playing at Scotiabank Arena maybe could do them some good. So I think the Eastern Conference I like that matchup, and in the Western Conference, I think Calgary versus Winnipeg, an all Canadian matchup will be a good one. Um, and yeah, Edmonton versus Chicago might be good too. See sort of the future and the past of the Canadian national team with Jonathan Taves and Connor McDavid going against each other. And Patrick Kane and Leon Draisaitl. So lots of good players in that series, and I think those are my picks. What about you?
Yeah, I think in the West, I think of course the all Canadian matchup is undoubtedly probably going to be one of the best series in the qualifying round. Um, we haven't really talked about like even like Vancouver as well. Like we haven't really talked about the series with Vancouver and Minnesota. I think Vancouver, um, they have a lot of young players, some great players, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser. Um, I mean, I think that this playoffs can be a great start for them, like for that core. Of course, I don't think that they're going to make the Cup final, but I think that starting with this playoffs, I think it would be great to see how far they'll go in the playoffs and how they will fare against the Wild. Also, another series I don't think we mentioned was the Coyotes and Predators. That's also another pretty good matchup too. I mean, Nashville's made the cup. Nashville made the cup a couple of years ago. Arizona's kind of a younger team coming up in the bigs, I would say. But I think that that would be another matchup to watch, a great matchup to watch too. Um, and yeah, I think those two would be great to see.
And mentioning Arizona, hopefully maybe Taylor Hall can get going a bit. He's kind of been a bit disappointing, I'd say, since he joined them. Or the team has been rather since they got him. Like he didn't really sort of kickstart their season like they were hoping for. I don't think. Um, Hopefully, if he can get going and some pieces around him can get going, maybe they could make a run as well. And also circling back to Vancouver, I think Jacob Markstrom is expected to be available. He was one of their best players before the break, but was injured. He's also playing for a contract, I believe, so um, he'll be motivated and maybe could lead that Vancouver team to some pretty good success.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think. Well, I was just gonna ask if there's a team like a 12 seed, 11, 10 seed that could possibly upset a top seed. Who do you think that would be?
Um, Maybe the New York Rangers against the Carolina Hurricanes. They have Artemi Panarin, who was one of the best players in the league this year. He had 95 points before the season was cut short. Um, I think they probably want to win one for Henrik Lundqvist as well, who's probably getting close to the end of his career. So I think the Rangers will be a motivated team, and if everyone's firing again, like if they just win a few games in a row and get hot, I think they could beat not only Carolina, but maybe go a bit deeper into these playoffs. I don't think they're going to win it all, but I do like them in that first round. What about you?
Um, I think I think New York has the Rangers have a good chance. I think also this is another series we didn't really talk about, the Islanders and Panthers. I think the Panthers were competing with the Leafs for the third spot in the Atlantic most of the year, and almost they could have got it with how the Leafs were playing at the end of the regular season. But I think the Panthers have a chance to upset the Islanders, um, and also maybe even the Coyotes. But but yeah, I think that one of those two teams have a good chance.
And what do you think about Montreal? I know I mentioned that I think Pittsburgh are going to go deep into the playoffs, but what do you sort of make of this Montreal team? Like, do you think they're going to be motivated because they now have a shot at the Stanley Cup they weren't expecting to have when they sort of made it in when the playoffs expanded, or do you think there's going to be the Montreal Canadiens and not have or not reach their potential and their goals?
Well, I mean, I think that they'll be lucky to win a game against the Penguins. I don't see them really playing well against Pittsburgh. Like I said, I'd be shocked if they won. I mean, they can win a game against Pittsburgh, but I don't think that they're going to take them to 5 games. But I mean, Montreal can be a sneaky team, but like I said, they won't. I don't think they'll really make any noise against Pittsburgh.
And I believe Sportsnet did power rankings, and Montreal was actually dead last. Like other than Carey Price, there's not really a lot going for the Montreal Canadiens. And sometimes like think they make it quite difficult for themselves at times. Um, but also there's one thing teams won't want to play for, but there is to play for, of course, which is a shot at Alexis Lafreniere. Um, a pretty good shot at Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be that lowest ranked team and get the best shot? I know
Um,
Montreal sure would like him because he's from Quebec, of course.
yeah, I was gonna say I think Montreal might have a chance of getting him. Of course, as if I didn't mention yet, the team that loses in the qualifying round has a chance to get Lafreniere. So, I mean, it could be any of the 16 teams that are playing in the qualifying round, but I think maybe Montreal has the best chance to. Um, maybe even the team like the like if the Leafs were somehow upset, like people think that the Leafs might get the first pick, which would be great for them, of course. But I think I think maybe the Canadians might actually get Lafreniere. What about you?
Yeah, I think the Montreal Canadiens are definitely going to be one of those teams knocked out in the first round or in this sort of qualifying play-in tournament thing. Chicago Blackhawks maybe if they lose. Might be kind of cool to see him play on that team. But also Lafreniere and Artemi Panarin on the same line would be pretty nice. So if he ends up going to the Rangers, I wouldn't be disappointed from a neutral perspective. Um, yeah, there's lots of teams who are going to be pretty bad if they get in this tournament. And I just said that I think the Rangers might cause an upset, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see them get swept. So we'll have to wait and see, of course. But I think him on Montreal would be a pretty cool sight.
Yeah, I think the Hurricanes were one of the two teams that didn't approve the return to play plan. I think they're worried about the Rangers. Maybe that's why they didn't approve it because people thought they would. Well, people think they're going to get upset. I mean, they have, like I said, they have a good chance, but we'll see.
And there's a few players in this tournament who are a bit older, maybe on the decline, but still have gas in the tank. Of course, like people like Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin on Pittsburgh. How much do you think they have to prove in this tournament? Like I think they've had a few months off to rest and get healthy, get in shape, uh, and some people maybe doubt them a bit. Do you think they're going to be motivated and ready to go?
Yeah, I think they can. I mean, like that qualifying round will probably be a breeze for them. But I mean, if they can get a some kind of reasonable matchup in the first round, I mean, I don't think I think they have a chance to beat the Capitals. Um, I think they also have a chance maybe to beat Boston, but I mean, other than that, maybe even Philly. Well, okay, they have a chance on against mostly every team. You can't really count out Pittsburgh. Um, but I think just relating to Crosby and Malkin and all the rest they've been getting, I think that it will definitely help them out. I think maybe in the first couple of games they'll be a little rusty. I mean, of course they play an exhibition game this week, or at least every team does. So maybe they'll um, it'll warm them up before their qualifying matchup. But I think that I think they, with all the rest that they've had for 4+ months, I think they have a chance to make some noise in this playoffs.
Awesome. Anything else you want to sort of talk about before we wrap this up? Any other sort
Uh,
of talking points?
well, I was gonna actually just mention
All right.
before we finish. Have you seen the building? How each hub has looked like in the inside the building, like
I've
the
seen
setup.
I've seen Scotiabank Arena. I've seen the Toronto setup, but I haven't seen Edmonton yet.
Yeah, it definitely looks nice. I think the NHL definitely did a great job, even though with the whole bubble situation too, like having like high fences up just to make sure no one gets into the hotel or anything like that.
And also like seeing the pictures coming in of players walking in with guitar cases. I'm just going to see what kind of covers we're going to get out of like I'm sure Matt Duchene would have had a guitar.
Yeah,
um, I'm sure there's a ton of. I've seen at least 3 or 4 pictures of players coming into the bubble with guitars. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
yeah, definitely. Can't wait to see it. Of course, it all starts on Saturday, August 1st, with 5 games on the schedule. Of course, almost every day there's going to be hockey from 12 to 10:30. Like it's going to be a great. It's going to be great. I mean, I can't wait. I'm assuming you can't wait either for
Yeah,
the playoffs.
yeah. I'm just glad
Yeah.
hockey's back, sports are back, to some extent. Playoffs are back, meaningful games, not just regular season game. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's it for this episode of On the Sidelines. Of course, as I mentioned, the NHL playoffs start August 1st, and don't forget to tune into those games. But thank you for watching. My name is Matthew Lee Bruni.
I'm Benedict Rhodes.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.